It's just kind of funny.
You read the first scripture, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Aaron, say to him, when you set up the lamp.
Stop me. Unless you really do want to read it.
They're
Uh,
What
number
is this doing to me?
Oh, I'm on X.
Oh.
Acts, not
Yeah,
Acts.
that'll be the problem.
That would be the problem.
There we go. Okay.
My life's starting with salt.
Okay. Nope, you're in the wrong book.
Yeah. Wait.
Okay. So this is going to begin by talking about the kind of the final work of the tabernacle. So this section of Numbers is in a way repeating some of the stuff that we've already dealt with in at the end of Leviticus. But it says, now the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to Aaron and say to him, when you set up the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give light in front of the lampstand. And Aaron did so. He set up its lamps in front of the lampstand as the Lord commanded Moses. And this was the workmanship of the lampstand, hammered work of gold. From its base to its flowers, it was hammered work according to the pattern that the Lord had shown Moses. So he made the lampstand. Now, this seems a little weird, and I'm going to be honest. It almost seems like what it's really saying is, okay, here's the direction you point the lamps.
Yeah.
Don't point them at the wall, point them so they give light forward. But really what we're talking about is just the idea that the tabernacle has been put up, okay, now, and it's basically done. Then for the chapter 7, we have all these gifts brought for the service of the tabernacle. Entire chapter deals with that idea of all these people from the different tribes who brought gifts for the tabernacle. And then it comes now, here's when you set up the lampstand. Go ahead.
I got a question. And this is just a weird off-the-wall question. Do they do that every time they set up the tabernacle, like bring gifts every
No.
time they move camp? They don't do that.
No,
every
this
time.
is the consecration
So
of
like
the
the very
tabernacle.
first ever. putting
Yes.
up the
Right.
whole thing.
Mhm.
So this
This
is setting it apart for the Lord.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. In the same way that you're about to see, as we start verse 5, you're going to see the consecration of the workers. Okay.
Even had to consecrate the workers.
Oh, yes. Well, remember in Leviticus, we dealt with the priests
Yes.
and consecrating the
Yes.
priest and setting them
And that
apart.
makes sense.
Mhm.
You know, so I guess it would only make sense they're gonna do it that way.
So verse 5 says, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, take the Levites from among the people of Israel and cleanse them. So remember, this is everybody from the child of Levi, from the tribe of Levi, except for Moses and his
Aaron.
family and Aaron and his family.
It says cleanse them. How do they cleanse them?
So it's going to explain.
Mhm.
So that is what this is talking about, is what that process is.
That's a lot of people.
So thus you shall do to them to cleanse them. See? Okay. Sprinkle the water of purification on them. Okay. So first it's clean water. Then they are to take a razor and shave all over their body. Now, here's the idea. It does not appear that this is a permanent thing. It is, as they are being consecrated, they have to remove
All the hair,
all the hair.
like even if they got hair on their back, all of it.
Apparently,
They broke.
it is
their
not
back
completely
hairs.
clear whether they had to shave off their beard and their hair too. This doesn't. This is just the men. Well, it'd be just the men that would do the work too. Remember that it's Levite men who would do the work of the
Age
tabernacle.
of 17 and like.
What, 25 to 50?
25 to 50.
Okay.
So shave their entire bodies.
Yes.
Where's the
And
clothes?
wash
Wash
their
their
clothes,
bodies, their
wash
clothes.
them. Okay. Now, there is a purpose for this discussion. They are physically cleaning themselves as a symbol of them being spiritually clean before God. Okay, and watch, it does both. So first, they have to go in and they wash themselves. They take a razor all over their body They cleanse themselves. Then let them, and it's as a group. Okay. Take a bull from the herd and its grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil. That's going to be a burnt offering. Okay. And then Aaron is to take another bull from the herd as a sin offering. Okay. So much like with the dedication of the priests, we have the idea of there is a sin offering and there's a burnt offering. Okay. So then you bring the Levites before the tent of meeting and assemble the whole congregation of Israel. Okay. When you bring the Levites before the Lord, the people of Israel shall lay their hands on the Levites. Now let's deal with this discussion.
Does this mean women too?
It doesn't, it's not clear. Probably. Okay. But now watch, because this is an interesting discussion, and it's something we still do in the church today. That when you are commissioning someone for a special work, what do? You lay hands on them. So it is a symbol of you going, you are going to be my representative in this work. You're going to do this. Okay. I agree that you are called to this. Okay.
Oh, like when we send the kids to camp. Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. It just dawned on me where I saw that.
Your deacon chief.
Or
Or the
deacons.
yeah.
Okay. So Aaron shall offer the Levites before the Lord as a wave offering. Now, this is a very interesting discussion. Okay. So, yes, I know.
I wanna hold it.
However,
It's for like community together. You just said wave offering and all I can think about is the
Giant
stadium.
stadium.
Hey,
Full of people who are just
however,
waving.
you may not be as far off as you think you are. Okay.
Might actually
So
be
now
that.
understand what I mean. Okay.
Not like actually, but
It is comparing it to a form of the offerings that they already did.
Yeah, where they collect.
They would take a piece of bread or whatever it was, and they would wave it before the Lord, offering it to him.
Well, let's go all the way forward to palm leaves.
Yes,
Same type of thing.
at some level,
Kinda.
yes. Okay, well, the
Praise
triumphant
and honor
entry,
And
at the triumphant entry, that's what that is. You're
Yeah.
taking these and you're waving
Waving
them
them.
in an honor.
yeah,
And an honor for Jesus.
Okay.
When he
And
And by the way, notice
Restricted
that in
to
that,
that, but-
Yeah.
in that discussion, there are two elements that fall into it that sometimes we don't realize are a part of culture. It says first they waved palm branches, but what else did they do as Jesus was riding down the road? They put their clothes down on the ground. Okay. Now, not necessarily our culture today, but in Western culture and all that, what did a guy do for his lady whenever there was a puddle?
I was just thinking that in the old movies, they always put their jacket down so the
Mhm.
ladies step over the.
Now, by the way, let's make sure we understand what that is. What that is that you are valuable enough that I don't want you to get your feet muddy, so I'll put my jacket down.
No, that's what that, well, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, also the reason that you look at medieval royalty and, by the way, a wedding ceremony today. What is the purpose of the flower girl in tradition? What does she do?
Halfway.
Don't ask me.
She
Throws
throws
the flowers.
flowers down the aisle before the bride comes down, so that the bride is walking on flowers
And not touch the ground.
because she is the
Yes,
most
oh.
honored person there,
Okay. Oh.
as
okay.
the groom waits for her at the front.
Oh.
Okay.
I got married, but okay.
There is,
I
but
didn't have that at the JP.
Nope.
but understand, all of that is an idea. Okay. It's the same discussion as, now remember, we have the traditions of the bride wearing white. Guess what? None of the maids of honor wear white. No matter what the situation of the wedding is. If you're doing a traditional wedding, why? So she stands out.
Yeah, Tara wants to wear black.
I-
I told her, can I wear pink? She says if it's black and pink. She says, actually, I don't care what did you wear.
But understand that the picture here is, and it's the same discussion. Okay. What they are doing is they are waving before the Lord these men as a purpose of, when you wave the bread, what are you doing? You're offering it to the Lord. Well, now you are offering these men to the Lord.
For their service. They're here
And
to
in
serve.
fact, we're going to see just how serious God is as he says this. Okay. So you offer them as a wave offering before the Lord that they may do the service of the Lord.
Every time.
Then the Levites shall lay their hands on the heads of the bulls, and you shall offer the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering to the Lord to make atonement for the Levites. Now, here we go. They have been completely physically cleaned. Now, with these offerings, they have been spiritually clean.
I love these group offerings, though.
Okay.
More bang for your buck.
And you shall set the Levites before Aaron and his sons and shall offer them as a wave offering to the Lord. In this way, it actually says thus, but in this way, you will separate the Levites from among the people of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine.
And that's why they don't get any specific land, right?
Yes.
Wait.
But it actually goes further than that. Go ahead.
I always forget who the Levites are.
The Levites are the son.
They're-
They are the workers in the tabernacle or the temple.
And the priests.
You have the priests and then you
Oh,
have the
okay.
Levites.
Okay. So then like.
So they don't have any land.
What?
They don't have any land.
There are cities scattered throughout there are cities that are scattered throughout the tribes of Israel that belong to the Levites.
And all
yes.
the priests come from the
Aaron.
Levites. Oh, all the priests ever come from
Aaron.
Aaron's genealogy.
Mhm. The priests are all from Aaron.
So he better have
Mhm.
kids, because.
The Levites are everyone else who are part of the tribe of Levi.
Okay,
Okay.
but originally Aaron was a Levite,
He is a Levite,
or is a Levite.
but he was specifically set off as the priest. Okay. So the priests
It's like the
have a
super-
specific
He's like
set
a
of,
That's really that's my favorite.
the priests have a specific set of jobs they are to do in the tabernacle.
With the sacrifices and all the other stuff,
The
Makes sense,
Levites
and
do
the whole-
everything else that needs to be done.
all the moving and the tearing down and the.
Well, remember, the tearing down is a specific discussion. What did we learn about a week ago? That Aaron and his sons had to go in and cover everything, and then the Levites came and got it.
Yeah, like super OCD about it.
Right.
Cover this and then this color, then every color was different for the different things, and then it
Okay.
go.
No,
There you
yeah,
go.
thank you. Thank you.
But
Couple more.
But understand, so taking out, and by the way, it's every job that is not specific to the priests.
Two priests.
So they would take out the garbage and they
And
would
they-
clean
the
up
ashes,
and they would do,
take
yeah,
all that stuff out.
okay.
Got you.
They would also serve the people outside of the tabernacle.
Now, are the Levites the ones that set up shop inside the temple later on when Jesus gets pissed?
So maybe. So
Because you're making this, it makes it sound like the Levites plan is like, because they're also connected to the temple, that they would have probably been the ones selling like the animals. being
But
sacrificed.
remember that some of the tribal identity of Israel is gone by the time of Jesus.
Because they've been taken into captivity so
And then-
many
Now,
times.
now the high
Yeah.
priest, the high priest and the priests would have still had to trace their
Son.
lineage back to
To Aaron.
Aaron. And the Levites would have still been servants within, but not all the Pharisees and Sadducees were Levites.
Okay,
Okay. It gets a little more confusing.
So like, I think of it in terms of kind of what we have today, and it's obviously not exactly around those same beings, but think of it in terms of maybe the deacons. And so like Nathan Wallace,
okay.
fixed the air conditioner in the nursery.
Yeah.
you know, like that wasn't Michael
Mhm.
that did
Yeah,
that.
okay.
It is the same.
I like the job of the
Mhm,
deacons.
mhm.
It is the
Right.
same role.
I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Sorry, no, the
So-
role of the deacon.
Okay, got you. Okay,
Okay,
got you.
that's kind of the same idea. And so like, you know, they are kind of the extended hands and feet of the church.
They were assistants.
Mhm.
Got you.
So the role of the deacon in the church is to assist the pastor and the people in doing the work of the Lord. They're specially called to them. In the same way, the Levites were specifically chosen to be servants of the people and servants of the
So
priests.
Levites,
to
not
do.
priests necessarily, but still leaders
Part of the
and
work.
spiritual direction and all of that. That's what the Levites were.
Mhm.
Just like deacons
Okay.
aren't the preacher.
And
But-
that reminds me of a role in FFA.
Okay. So-
Specifically,
Now, this part becomes very interesting and it's, okay, so thus you separate, we talked, the Levites shall be mine. And after that, the Levites shall go in to serve at the temple of meeting when you have cleansed them and offered them as a wave offering. For they are wholly given to me from among the people of Israel. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Instead of all who open the womb, the firstborn of all the people of Israel, I have taken for myself. So this is an interesting discussion. He's now bringing it back to the Passover. Okay, so what happened at the Passover?
They were passed over and all their firstborn got saved.
Mhm.
They survived.
They survived.
So,
But then
In-
God said every firstborn after that is mine.
mhm.
Every
But
firstborn.
of the people, now remember, but we go in and we look at this and we say, okay, so everything that opened the womb, okay, every firstborn, and I think it's male is the way it's phrased, every firstborn male, even in the livestock.
Mhm.
So if your cow had they're not a heifer till after
Nope.
they've had kids,
You're
right?
right.
But if your
I
cow
thought
has its
before
first,
they had kids.
Mhm.
no, it's after
First
the
year.
first kid, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mm.
no, they're heifers,
A
I
ri-
think,
Okay,
at a certain age.
Mhm.
but
And
First
then,
year.
Oh, I may be wrong. I don't-
well, either way.
First year.
So when your heifer has its first calf,
okay,
that calf has to be given to the Lord. It has to be killed and given to the Lord.
I think you referred to as 2-year-old heifers.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, and then your donkey, your every single animal. Okay.
Yeah.
Now your donkey can be redeemed with a lamb. Okay. And then it says that your children must be redeemed by a lamb.
And if you
Okay.
can't afford land,
Then you're
turn
Right.
doves or-
Okay. So,
Here's this for those of you that
Right.
got a lot of money.
so the idea here is that because I spared your firstborns, you will give me an offering when you have your firstborn child because I spared them. But in addition to that, the tribe of the Levites, and particularly the Levite servants to the Lord, are a payment for the sparing of the firstborn children.
Which is why-
So these Levites will be, and understand that there are times where you will hear this phrase that this animal is dedicated to the Lord. And what that means is the animal has been killed in sacrifice. The Levites are dedicated to the Lord, not in death, but in their entire life.
Oh, okay,
Thank you. They sacrifice their
their life.
Right,
their
to
life's
serve
work,
God.
their life's work.
Their life. Okay, got it.
Mine
Okay.
says they're assigned to me.
Uh-huh. Okay,
My,
but
quite an assignment.
uh-huh. So I have taken, and by the way, it says this, I have taken them for myself.
Yep.
Okay. For all the firstborn among the people of Israel are mine, both man and of beast. On the day that I struck down all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, I consecrated them for myself. And I have taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the people of Israel. So I have dedicated them wholly to me instead of taking every firstborn.
Got you.
Okay. And I have given, now this is how this goes on. I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and his sons from among the people of Israel. So watch, I have taken them for my own, and then I have given them as a gift to the priests to help them do their job.
Gotcha.
Okay, to do the service for the people of Israel at the tent of meeting, and to make atonement for the people of Israel. So understand that the Levites are able to do this atonement sacrifices Now,
For the people.
for
of
the
Israel.
people of Israel. They are not able to go into the holy place and all of that. That's a priest job only.
Or do the sin offerings or.
Well, no, apparently they can do that. So here's the purpose though, because it's very important we get this, and especially at this point. At this point, there are 3 priests.
Yeah, Aaron and his 2 sons.
Right. Because, and well, maybe at this point there are 5, but within a few days, it's going to be down to 3 because 2 of them are going to get struck dead.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, yeah. Okay.
So there are only
Is that
3
what he
priests.
did in-
How many people are there?
Million.
More than 1 million.
Yeah.
So those 3 guys aren't going to be able to handle it.
No, which is why the Levites are. To do
Exactly.
the extra work.
Okay. That way, Aaron and his sons can focus on the work that God has for them
So they're like minor priests,
at some
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
like not complete.
Deacon Bob.
Well, so let me
Our
explain that
Catholic
story.
church had-
Our Catholic church in Tucumcari had a couple of guys that they called them deacons. And one of them, and he was a wonderful man, his name was Deacon Bob. That's what everybody called him. He did a tremendous amount of the ministry to the people within St. Anne's Church in Tucumcari. The priest does some, he does weddings and all of that, but an ordained deacon, and by the way, often whenever they would have their mass at the mission over here, it was Deacon Bob. Because the priest had to be at his own church, so he sent Deacon Bob to do services in San Jon. And so it's the same idea. It's the idea of this job is too big for one person. And so we're going to spread it out a little bit.
These guys to-
Even like the big churches.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Deacons and associate pastors, and I mean, you know,
So like apparently God was listening when Moses' father-in-law said this is too much for you to do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You need help, you need to like delegate.
Apparently.
by the way, it was a
God-
message.
God was planting that.
It was a
in
message
his
from
father.
God through.
True, okay,
Yeah.
which is why now they also have the
Yes.
Levites to
Yes.
all for the ball.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So notice, to make atonement for the people of Israel so that there may be no plague among the people of Israel when the people of Israel come near the sanctuary. So they are to.
Frogs.
I know. Tiny frog like.
Right.
So, thus did Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the people of Israel to the Levites. According to all that the Lord commanded Moses concerning the Levites, the people of Israel did to them. And the Levites purified themselves from sin and washed their clothes. And Aaron offered them as a wave offering before the Lord. And Aaron made atonement for them to cleanse them. And after that, the Levites went in to do the service in the tent of meeting before Aaron and his sons, as the Lord had commanded Moses concerning the Levites. So they did to them. So they obeyed all of that. Then verse 23 gives us an image of how this is to work. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, this applies to the Levites. From 25 years old and upward, they shall come to do duty in the service of the tent of meeting. So, up until the age of 25, they have no responsibilities in the tent of meeting.
Once they're 25.
Once they are 25, then, and by the way, this is part of this discussion. What this means is that it is not every Levite who got consecrated, but just the ones who were of service age.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so, as a general rule, there are times when a new set of Levites hit the age and are added into the service and they would be consecrated again. Okay. They serve in the duties of the tabernacle for 25 years.
25 years.
Mhm. Now, what this will also mean, and it comes up later, by the way, where it actually comes up the most is in the story in the beginning of Luke. Okay. So this is a couple thousand years later, but it tells us that Zacharias, which is John the Baptist's dad, was working in the temple. Okay. And it said that his lot came up. So the idea
Was he not a priest?
well, but he would also, well, we think so.
Oh.
But either way,
But
this
it-
would be
okay.
the issue.
Mm.
Not every Levite served all the time.
Oh,
So you would have,
so many.
it would have been a shift type of thing. And at the time, like, you work every Friday or you work the third Friday of each month
Or
or
every time I roll a 7, you get a couple hours on shift.
Right.
Yeah.
because there would have been enough of them that they wouldn't have all been needed. Okay. Once they
I'm like,
I know my luck. I don't want that.
Right.
I don't want that.
Work a few hours. Or 11
But-
to 20.
no,
But-
oh, sad day.
You're working
But-
20 hours shift.
Understand that at the time,
Only 11 to
So,
hey, Nate, at the time, understand that that was a way that they tried to determine what God was telling them. They believed God controlled the outcome. And so they would roll. Once the but here's the thing, once the Holy Spirit is given in Acts chapter 2, you never see it happen in the scripture again.
Which is why when the people are throwing bones or bringing ruins, they're doing witchcraft.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
but understand
Never services
So-
again. There's not a casting of lots.
from age 25 to age 50, that is your job, is to do duty in the tabernacle.
Gotcha.
Okay. Or later the temple.
Which
And
still
okay.
not that bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but this is the interesting thing. That doesn't work for the priests.
No.
The priests have duty for life.
Right. You're in it for life.
There's no.
You're-
It's like being financial secretary at a Baptist church.
Not there for-
Till you die or move. Okay.
It's like my
Although I don't
parents'
think
pastor
pastor
just retired for the 3rd time and
Well,
is now an associate pastor at
Although I
the
don't
church in
think the
Wheeler.
priest had the chance to move.
well, look, I'm being silly, but the truth of the matter is Julie has been financial secretary longer than I've been here,
I know.
Oh, far longer.
far longer than
Yeah.
I've been here.
Like,
And very good at it. And somebody's going to have some big shoes to fill whenever we find someone else,
like
but
how many?
I
how
don't know
many?
exactly.
Like
Oh,
life.
many.
Like
Okay.
over
Um,
20 probably.
Said, well, Dylan is 23. She's probably been doing it at least 20 years, at least.
At least 20 years
Mhm.
before you were there.
No, at least 20 years
In
total.
total.
So then probably like 11.
7 or 8 years before I got here. But anyway, understand that. So here's the idea though, as a
But
Levite,
at
when
50
you
years
reach
old, she could
50,
retire.
Right.
at 50,
She's past that.
I
she's
was
past that already.
She's already past
Oh,
it.
shucks. Really?
Right?
Yeah.
She does not look.
No.
even
Oh,
close.
you know.
You're right.
She's what?
56.
56.
She's a year younger than Franklin. Wow, she does not even look that old.
So Letitia sent me a message asking a question about the throwing of lots.
Looks like
Thro-
it's 30.
Throwing bones and all of that stuff is a pretty common thing in religions of that day.
Yeah.
Understand that the one difference with the Jews that was kind of prevalent in all of this is that God gave them a way to do that, and there was a chance for God not to answer.
Oh, yeah. And
There are a
that's the
couple
whole
places
thing.
where it says that, and God didn't answer. Understand that in most pagan religions, the throwing of bones is dictated by the one throwing.
Loaded.
And
Totally.
well, but
Totally loaded.
read it. It's the one who reads it.
Yeah,
So you can throw whatever and go, well, that's what that says.
yeah, because who's to argue? 'Cause no
Yeah,
one
who's
else
going to
knows.
argue because no one else knows?
That would have been totally. good
So
job
it
back
is a
then.
little
Let me
different.
throw the bone.
Um,
I'll spin your tail.
It's like when your job. It's like when your job is to tell people what the whales are saying. You can't argue.
Oh my gosh.
You can't argue.
saying. Okay.
Here's what
But-
the whales are saying.
Lonely.
Understand that the idea, though, is that the throwing of dice and all of that is something that they did. However, that was not the only way God spoke to them.
No, he also said angels. Thank
He-
God he doesn't
I
do
mean,
that
you know,
anymore.
there were several different ways that God spoke, but we do see that done, at least in the Old Testament and early in the New Testament. But
Right.
no, it wasn't limited just to the Jews. But anyway, back to this discussion. So for 25 years, they do service in the tabernacle. Then at age 50, they retire from their service in the tabernacle. They can still be guards outside of the tabernacle, but they cannot serve inside the tabernacle doing the work of the priest, doing the sacrificial work.
Time out. Go back to what Letitia was asking. I have no idea if that's what she was thinking, but so the lots specifically, is that specifically
So in this
to the
case,
Jews?
no, the
Lots in general.
the
or
Urim and the
specific?
Thummim
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
in the high
I-
priest is specific to the
To the
Jews. But
The
most
casting of
actually,
lots.
several
That's a common
times when we see the
practice.
casting of lots, it is not the Jews.
Okay,
The best example of that to give that idea is remember that the sailors on the boat that Jonah's on are casting lots to figure out who is who's causing the problem, and they would not be Jewish.
I love that
Right.
story.
yeah.
Okay. Now I will be completely fair that my favorite version of that story is still the Veggie Tales version, in which they determine who's guilty by playing Go Fish.
You made your
I'm telling you,
Okay.
VeggieTales has entertainment for old and young alike. Of course.
So
We should talk about this.
thus you show you due to the Levites in assigning their duty, their age matters. So now we move to chapter 9 and we find, and the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they'd come out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the people of Israel keep the Passover at its appointed time. Now remember that in Exodus, they leave on the killing of the firstborns in Egypt happens on the 14th day of the first month of their year. Okay, so we celebrate Passover at twilight on the 14th day of the month.
I want to know who kept track of the days for that. And how did
It's
you
a
do
lunar
that?
calendar. So remember that the Jewish calendar is lunar. So every new moon is the first day of the month.
Wait,
Oh, so it's the new moon.
So the new moon would be the first day of the month. The full moon would be the 15th of the month. About 14th, 15th of the month.
what?
And you go to the next new moon, that ends the month. So the cycles of the moon would tell you about what day it is.
So
Which
was
I
it?
think is kind of interesting if that's the case, if all this happened like on say the 14th, like right before the full moon. Like,
It would have.
Notorious.
It would have.
Like,
My-
that did you?
Go ahead and ask.
There's
Like, my
absolutely
thing
something to
is that like you saying lunar, like for some reason in my head implies the existence of a solar calendar.
There is. We have a solar calendar. How many days are in a year?
365.
320.
What?
300 and something.
They're not even five.
No,
Oh my God.
What?
365 and a quarter.
Oh, I was close.
We have leap year
What is leap year?
where we
It's
add
making
one
up the
day.
quarter.
I was
So
Because
we have our calendar, the Julian, named after Julius Caesar. The
Really?
Julian calendar is solar. And it goes from, and I don't remember how they mark when the first day is of it, but it's the position of the sun in the sky.
Man.
But it is one full rotation of the sun or of the earth around the sun.
Wait.
Now they would have seen it. Now understand, they would have seen it as one full.
Rotate the sun around the earth.
Around
Okay. Yeah.
They must have had
But
good eyes back
the-
then.
Well, but understand that there are elements.
Different activity.
So there are unmoving points in the sky.
The sun stare.
Okay. There are unmoving points in the sky.
Like,
So when the sun is in a specific place, and by the way, they did navigation this way too. At high noon, you would look and see what angle the sun was off of straight up. And you could tell how far north and south you were.
I see.
So the sun is in a way a fixed point.
Lot of math.
I think
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a rock over at Gallup and then, reservation. That at a certain time of the year, the sun shines through this rock.
and that's it, just that time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And I think that there's some of that in different, like Mayan civilization
Different
and,
cultures,
yeah, one day of the year is this one thing possible,
and by the way, you go in and you look at the fact that as a typical rule, solar eclipses happen within a 2 or 3 day window every year. Because it's when the earth hits a specific spot in correlation to the sun
And the moon-
Which
that
is
the moon can
also-
pass in front.
why we have partial ones versus full ones, because it's a different spot
Position
in the earth.
Depends on where the earth is exactly when that event happens. And
Yeah.
so
That's a lot of math. sounds like.
there is a lot of.
Solar.
Ours is
Now,
solar, we
the-
go based off of the sun.
And they used to.
Letitia mentioned that the lunar one can be complex because where the moon is in correlation with all the other bodies in the sky, it takes several years for it to come back to a repeatable place.
Which is where we get astrology.
Right.
Astrology.
But, and by the way, that is the whole discussion. It is what stars are behind the sun at any particular point in the year. That's how you know which of those zodiac signs you're in.
Season we're in.
Mhm.
And all the stupid zodiac discussion is
Yeah.
that where the sun is in the sky based on all of those other things. But
But
understand
that
that when you talk about Jewish history, they are going in a lunar calendar, which meant their calendar was exactly 360 days. It was 1230s.
Down to the second.
Okay.
which I think would be a whole lot less confusing with what days. It's got how many days.
I understand, but there are reasons for both. Because guess what? Then you get thrown off every year as to where the sun is. Spring starts at a different day every year because the seasons are relative to the sun.
But
And you
isn't
lose
that
5 days every year.
more like more authentic that a spring should start every day different. Every year different.
Not
because
really.
Where the sun is. But that's what the sun actually does is create the spring. So it should start whenever the sun starts it.
Well, but
Why do we?
but understand why the solar calendar works on that. Do you know what causes it to be spring?
I don't have a clue.
So the earth is tilted, okay, by what, 15, 16 degrees?
Mhm. 17.
Okay, so
We're not like.
with the sun here,
Oh, we thought we were.
okay, with the sun here,
Like that.
if the tilt is like this and the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, then it is summer in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere.
Aren't we
And,
shaped more like an egg?
yeah, but when it gets to here,
Equinox.
then look at how it relates to the sun. It's straight up and down in regards to the sun.
Equinox.
That's spring
Oh.
and fall. Spring
okay.
and fall both work this way. Then when it comes around to here and the northern hemisphere is pointed away,
It is
then winter in the northern hemisphere, summer in the southern hemisphere.
And is that why like Australia's summer is in December?
Christmas is in the summer in Australia.
Okay, because I was reading that online. I'm like, that can't be real.
You know,
That
Yeah,
can't
it
be real.
So now watch.
you know,
That means that on March 20th or 21st, within a 2 to 3 day window, spring starts. Every year. Summer is always the 20th of July. No,
Yeah, the longest day of the year is the 20th of July.
is the 20th,
No,
of
20th of June.
20th of June. Okay, and then all the way around. If you're doing a lunar calendar, then it's going to shift about 5 to 10 days every year,
So,
which is why the solar one works better. Yeah, 21st of June.
so I just want to point this out because this is funny. I learned all of this and even some more stuff about the moon, like tides or whatever,
Mhm.
in biology.
Good.
That doesn't surprise me.
Although biology seems weird, I think physical science, but
I
Okay.
didn't learn any of the moon stuff, but I did learn the hemisphere crap in Miss
Mhm.
Moore's class.
Because
In
why would she
geography?
teach
Yeah.
actual geography?
I know, I actually learned something.
so anyway,
Anyway,
moving on.
Moving
So-
on.
so
Sorry.
And
The
this
first-
right there is why we're not allowed in Bible
Right.
study.
okay. So on a lunar calendar, we would come up and on the 14th day of their first month of the year, which would be about mid-spring, would be early spring.
Okay.
Okay. They would have the Passover.
Ooh, Passover.
Now, the reason that it comes up here,
Thank you there.
the reason it comes up here is this. A group of men, it says, okay, so we come to verse 6. And there were certain men who were unclean through touching a dead body. Okay, so they had touched a dead body
So they
within a day or two of the Passover. And so they couldn't observe it because they weren't ceremonially clean.
Okay.
Okay. So they come to Moses and say, do we really have to miss the Passover because we're unclean?
Well, yeah.
Okay. So but this is why it comes up. Those men said to him, we are unclean through touching a dead body. Why are we kept from bringing in the Lord's offering at its appointed time among the people of Israel? Moses said to them, wait that I may hear what the Lord will command concerning you. Okay. So then in verse 9, it says, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to the people of Israel saying, if one of you or your descendants is unclean through touching a dead body or is on a long journey, he shall still keep the Passover of the Lord. In the second month on the 14th day, at twilight, they shall keep it.
So it gives them enough time to be clean
It gives them a month
and it gives
to
them
become
enough time
clean
to
and to
hold.
get home.
And then they can observe
Okay.
it later.
Okay.
Now, it does not specifically bring this up at that point, but when we go in and we look at Nehemiah, Ezra and Nehemiah, they reinstate the Passover, but they have it on the 14th day of the second month. And so there is while it doesn't appear that that's the reason why they do it, but there's almost as if there is a spiritual discussion here that says that the people have been unclean for all these years.
Oh, you mean when they come back out of
When they come back out of exile, the first time they do the Passover, they don't do it on the first month. They do it on the second.
Okay, that's
Or they've been on a long journey. They've been out of the land
Uh-huh.
and they've returned.
So it's a very
Whatever
interesting
that is
discussion.
There, it's
so
It's not by
saying, "Here you
accident."
go. There's no reason to fret.
Uh-huh.
We'll let you have an extra month and you can do the Passover, so you're not missing out on the big party. You know, you just got to do it late.
Right.
With your ceremony.
You're still able to be obedient to what God told you had to do every year.
And that was their concerns. They were worried about
Yeah.
not being.
But he goes on, he says, okay, now, if in the second month of the 14th day at twilight, they shall keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall eat none of it until morning, nor break any of its bones. According to all the statutes for the Passover, they shall keep it. So they still have to follow every other rule. They just get to do it a month later.
Gotcha.
But then it goes on. But if anyone who is clean and not on a journey fails to keep the Passover.
Ruh-roh.
So in other words, if you don't have an actual extenuating circumstance, you do it on the day it's supposed to be done.
Otherwise, you're
No excuses.
No excuses.
Otherwise, you not gonna have a good time.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, fun times are not gonna work.
So then it goes on. And if a stranger sojourns among you, now remember, when we talk about a stranger, we're not talking about a pagan. We are talking about one who is a foreigner, but is
married.
choosing to live among the Jews and follow the
Oh.
Jews' God.
Okay, gotcha.
If
Like
he
Ruth,
wishes
right.
and would keep the Passover to the Lord, then he will keep it according to this same rule. He'll do it on the 14th day of the first month, or if he was unclean at the time, he'll do it on the 14th day of the second month. You will have one statute, both for the sojourner and for the native. Okay. Like I said, a sojourner is following God. They are just not Jewish.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Like, cause I'm not Jewish, I would think him technically.
Ruth.
Yeah, Ruth was awesome.
And then
I like
off
that.
with just that.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
next
All right.
section doesn't even-
So
Yeah.
we are going to stop there. And
So
we will
that,
pick up chapter 9, verse 15.
You said it.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a good week. Thank you for knocking the chair over, Nathan.
No problem.